Administrative utopias are a peculiar kind of dreaming by those in power, driven by an urge to arrange the lives of others, organizing them for production, combat, or detention. The operating principles of administrative utopia are hierarchy, discipline, regimentation, strict order, rational planning, a geometrical environment, a production line, a cell block, and a form of welfarism. Government schools, and some private schools, pass such parameters with flying colors. In one sense, administrative utopias are laboratories for exploring the technology of subjection, and as such belong to a precise subdivision of pornographic art, total surveillance, and total control of the helpless. The aim and mode of administrative utopia is to bestow order and assistance on an unwilling population, to provide its clothing and food, to schedule it. In a masterpiece of cosmic misjudgment, the phrenologist George Combe wrote Horace Mann on November 14, 1843. The Prussian and Saxon governments, by means of their schools and their just laws and rational public administration, are doing a good deal to bring their people into a rational and moral condition. It is pretty obvious to thinking men that a few years more of this cultivation will lead to the development of free institutions in Germany.
When Johnny comes marching home again, hurrah, hurrah, we'll give him a hearty welcome then, hurrah, hurrah.
Earlier that year, on May 21st, 1843, Mann had written to Combe, "I want to find out what are the results as well as the workings of the famous Prussian system." Just 3 years earlier, with the election of Marcus Morton as governor of Massachusetts, a serious challenge had been presented to Mann and his Board of Education and the air of Prussianism surrounding it and its manufacturer-politician friends. A House committee was directed to look into the new Board of Education and its plan to undertake a teachers' college, with $10,000 put up by industrialist Edmund Dwight. 4 days after its assignment, the majority reported a bill to kill the board, discontinue the normal school experiment, it said, and give Dwight his money back. If the board has any actual power, it is a dangerous power, touching directly upon the rights and duties of the legislature. If it has no power, why continue its existence at an annual expense to the Commonwealth? But the House committee did more. It warned explicitly that this board really wanted to install a Prussian system of education in Massachusetts to put a monopoly of power in a few hands, contrary to every aspect of the true spirit of our democratical institutions. The vote of the House on this was the single greatest victory of Mann's political career. A 32-vote swing might have given us a much different 20th century than the one we saw. Mann arrived in Prussia when its schools were closed for vacation. He toured empty classrooms, spoke with authorities, interviewed vacationing schoolmasters, and read piles of dusty official reports. Yet from this non-experience, he claimed to come away with a strong sense of the professional competence of Prussian teachers, all admirably qualified and full of animation. His wife, Mary of the famous Peabodys, wrote home, "We have not seen a teacher with a book in his hand in all of Prussia. No, not one." This wasn't surprising, for they hardly saw teachers at all. Equally impressive, he wrote, was the wonderful obedience of children. These German Kinder had innate respect for superior years. The German teacher corps, the finest collection of men I have ever seen, full of intelligence, dignity, benevolence, kindness, and bearing. Never, says Mann, did he witness an instance of harshness and severity. All is kind, encouraging, animated, sympathizing. On the basis of imagining this miraculous vision of exactly the Prussia he wanted to see, Mann made a special plea for changes in the teaching of reading. He criticized the standard American practice of beginning with the alphabet and moving to syllables, urging his readers to consider the superior merit of teaching entire words from the beginning. "I am satisfied," he said, "our greatest error in teaching lies in beginning with the alphabet." The heart of Mann's most famous report to the Boston School Committee, the legendary Seventh, rings a familiar theme in American affairs. It seems, even then we were falling behind. This time behind the Prussians in education. In order to catch up, it was mandatory to create a professional corps of teachers and a systematic curriculum, just as the Prussians had. Mann fervently implored the board to accept his prescription, while there was still time. The note of hysteria is a drum roll sounding throughout Mann's entire career. Together with the vilification of his opponents, it constitutes much of Mann's spiritual signature. That fall, the Association of Masters of the Boston Public Schools published its 150-page rebuttal of Mann's report. It attacked the normal schools proposal as a vehicle for propaganda for Mann's hotbed theories in which the projectors have disregarded experience and observation. It belittled his advocacy of phrenology and charged Mann with attempting to excite the prejudices of the ignorant. The second attack was against the teacher-centered non-book presentations of Prussian classrooms, insisting the psychological result of these was to break student potential for forming the habit of independent and individual effort. The third attack was against the word method in teaching reading and in defense of the traditional alphabet method. Lastly, it attacked Mann's belief that interest was a better motivator to learning than discipline. Duty should come first and pleasure should grow out of the discharge of it. Thus was framed a profound conflict between the old world of the Puritans and the new psychological strategy of the Germans. 60 years later, amid a well-coordinated attempt on the part of industrialists and financiers to transfer power over money and interest rates from elected representatives of the American people to a Federal Reserve of centralized private banking interests, George Reynolds, president of the American Bankers Association, rose before an audience on September 13, 1909, to declare himself flatly in favor of a central bank modeled after the German Reichsbank. As he spoke, the schools of the United States were being forcibly rebuilt on Prussian lines. On September 14, 1909, in Boston, the President of the United States, William Howard Taft, instructed the country that it should take up seriously the problem of establishing a centralized bank on the German model. As the Wall Street Journal put it, an important step in the education of Americans would soon be taken to translate the realm of theory into practical politics, in pedagogy, as well as finance. Dramatic, symbolic evidence of what was working deep in the bowels of the school institution surfaced in 1935. At the University of Chicago's Experimental High School, the head of the social science department, Howard C. Hill, published an inspirational textbook, The Life and Work of the Citizen. It is decorated throughout with the fasces, symbol of the fascist movement, an emblem binding government and corporation together as one entity. Mussolini had arrived in America. The fasces are strange hybridized images. One might almost say Americanized. The bundle of sticks wrapped around a two-headed axe, the classic Italian fascist image, had been decisively altered. Now the sticks are wrapped around a sword. They appear on the spine of this high school text, on the decorative page introducing Part 1, again on a similar page for Part 2, and are repeated on Part 3 and Part 4 as well. There are also fierce military eagles hovering above those pages. The strangest decoration of all is on the title page, a weird interlock of hands and wrists which, with only a few slight alterations of its structural members, would be a living swastika. The legend announces it as representing the united strength of law, order, science, and the trades. Where the strength of America had traditionally been located in our First Amendment guarantee of argument, now the Prussian connection was shifting the locus of attention in school to cooperation with both working and professional classes, sandwiched between the watchful eye of law and order. Prussia had entrenched itself deep into the bowels of American institutional schooling.